today will focus on is entitled Structured Collaboration Across a Transformative Knowledge Network, Learning Across Disciplines, Cultures, and Contexts. And that's in 2020, from 2020 in sustainability. So without further ado, Adrian, handing it over to you.
Ariane has already introduced me. I'm based at SPRU, and I've been working with the STEP Centre since, well, yes, nearly 15 years. STEPS stands for Social, Technological and Environmental Pathways to Sustainability. And so Pathways is quite key to the work that we've been doing since 2006. I am going to be reflecting mainly on this particular project, which has involved not only the STEP Centre and our local partners in Sussex, but also a consortium around the world which developed around 2014. And the paper that Ariane mentioned is certainly one of the outputs of that, but I'll be sharing and pointing towards some of the others. So this is reflecting on a process of international transdisciplinary networked research and hoping to offer some insights about how future projects of similar nature might be organised to really take forward this area of knowledge and action around pathways. You can see a lot of logos down there of our partner organisations. I co-led this project with Annabel Marin, who's a colleague from Argentina. And the particular project that is the flagship of this consortium is the Pathways Transformative Knowledge Network, which was funded under the first phase of the Future Earth Transformations to Sustainability Programme. I think it's worth saying that this is a reflection from one particular person, the co-lead of the project, and indeed there may be other ways of viewing or experiencing what we've learned over the last 5 or 6 years. And so it'd be great if some of our colleagues named here, who we've learned from and who I'm drawing upon in this presentation, might also engage in future fora. So the project that I'm focusing on, I've mentioned, involved a number of different hubs. We've got 6 hubs here, and each of them involved researchers from different disciplines, but also worked in a transdisciplinary mode. So beyond the people who were mentioned and named on that slide before, we had huge numbers of organisations from civil society, from the private sector, from government, hundreds of people all contributing their own ideas. So a lot of different ideas. And one of the challenges that we tried to address here was how to make sense of these notions of pathways, notions of sustainability in these very different contexts. We embarked upon the project through a process of co-design, and we saw it as being really important that each local hub, each local context and network of actors work together to design and identify their own projects, their own sustainability challenges, rather than being driven from the project coordination. And so that's what happened. But luckily we were able to pair up the different hubs so that they could learn across the different contexts in particular sectors, even if they'd chosen quite different sustainability challenges or problem spaces to work with. So, for example, the UK and the Argentina hubs worked together in research on agri-food systems, open source seeds in Argentina, and they established an open source seeds platform called BioLeft, and land use and land management around Brighton and Hove in the UK. So really quite different, but at least in the same sector. In our Mexican and Indian hubs, our colleagues worked on issues around water and urban sustainability. And in our Chinese and Kenyan hubs, the broad area was really about clean and inclusive development. So in China, that was about disrupting high carbon and polluting forms of industry around cement production. And in Kenya, that was about enhancing the diffusion of off-grid renewables. So really quite different empirical areas, but importantly, they were locally defined. What we needed to do was to design a project in a way that allowed us to learn across those different contexts about the role that transdisciplinary research and social science can play, not only in understanding transformations to sustainability, but also in contributing to them. And we used one tool, which I'm going to talk about really as a key part of this talk, which we've named anchors, so theoretical and methodological anchors. We were lucky because there had, even before the initiation of the Transformative Knowledge Network, there had been a history of collaboration between at least some of the hubs and members of the STEP Centre. And so there was some familiarity with some of the conceptual tools that the STEP Centre had been working with. And we used these as theoretical anchors. A lingua franca, a language that enabled us to explore conceptual lessons from each of these very different contexts. So the theoretical anchors were systems, framings, and pathways. They're not all necessarily new ideas, but they were brought together in this 2010 book by some of our colleagues here at Sussex. And we used these as a kind of a starting point around which we innovated and experimented and learned from disagreeing as well about these concepts. Just to go into a bit more detail about those theoretical anchors, they are defined formally here. These are the verbatim definitions taken from that book. And I guess this answers the question, nice words, but what do they actually mean, which is the subtitle of today's forum. So transformations are interested in systemic change. That draws from ecology. It also draws from engineering insights. It's particular configurations of dynamic, interacting, social, technological, and environmental elements. Framings, this is a real social science concept, recognizing the different ways of understanding and representing social, technological, or natural systems and their relevant environment. And pathways, our colleagues defined as the particular directions in which interacting social, technological, and environmental systems co-evolve over time. We started from there and we experimented with these concepts over the course of the project. We also adopted what we call a methodological anchor. It wasn't a particular method, but the idea of transformation laboratories, or T-labs, which draws on earlier work around social innovation labs, real-world labs. There's a whole range of different concepts, and we defined as a process involving research and transdisciplinary engagement to address a complex sustainability problem or challenge. So you can see that these are formal definitions. You can use them as anchors, but actually they also allow interpretation, and they were indeed interpreted and applied in different ways in each of our hubs. In terms of the T-labs and in terms of the architecture of the project, this is covered in the paper that Adrian mentioned before. We adopted a kind of structured project timeline, which again set certain similarities across each of the hubs, but also gave a lot of flexibility. There was research throughout, 2 rounds of T-lab workshops, but also processes of reflection between the T-labs at the beginning and end of the project, and also a real focus on cross-learning through surveys, which were filled out by each of our hub teams and fed into these discussions. So you can see the project really ended in 2018, 2019, but we have continued to work on reflecting on these lessons up until the present day. And beyond the paper that Adrian mentioned, we've also actually in a lot more detail explained our findings and our lessons in this open access book. So if you try and find this on the Routledge or Taylor and Francis website, There's a link for you to buy it, but don't go there. I'm going to share in the chat the open access link, which allows you to download it for free. This process of writing the book, which has been extremely difficult over the last year or two, as you can imagine, with COVID and the distance that we've had, has really allowed us to reflect on this learning journey more deeply. And beyond that, there have been other activities that have emerged from the since the formal end of the project. Our colleagues from India and Mexico have suggested and been leading processes of reflection and self-criticism within and across different hubs. So those processes of learning and exchange have continued. And also our colleagues from Kenya and also from Mexico have taken forward new initiatives, for example, around methods, a series of events around decolonizing methods, which are going to come together in a methods bazaar, which they're holding on the 8th of eighth of November. Some of the lessons, some of the learning around anchors will be discussed at the final STEPS conference on the 8th of December. But I think that the really important thing to take home from our experience is that the anchors are all well and good. They're always interpreted differently and touched down in very different ways, given the disciplinary backgrounds, let alone the sustainability challenges that are being researched in the different parts of the world. We didn't want, and actually it was the different interpretations and the experimentation around those anchors that was most important and instructive for our work. And that required a huge amount of adaptability. Now, I think adaptability is key, not only for researchers, but also for funders and for research institutions. But I think that actually science is not set up to be adaptable. Science is very much set up, a lot of science is set up so that it's rigid, so that it is well controlled, and the parameters are set from the top down or from formal scientific centers of power. And I think that all of us need to learn to adapt to new and emerging knowledge, but also rapidly changing and transforming systems in our work. So we've tried to do that as much as possible in the project. But obviously, I think that in terms of science-based pathways for sustainability, the area of work that we're embarking on through this forum, it raises some really significant questions about science and its role in these pathways of change. Thanks.
Fantastic, Adrian. That was just wonderful. And what a great, so first of all, thanks for providing the link for downloading the book. I mean, that's going to be a great resource for all of us going forward. And I think your point on how the anchors are so